Good evening. My name is Kenda Polio, and we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you very much for joining this evening. Tonight's public information forum will include an introduction by the Las Vegas Field Office Manager, Shauna Doman, followed by introductions of participants from the BLM Southern Nevada District and KP Environmental. I will be facilitating tonight's session as the third-party contractor. After introductions by Jessica Heaton, the BLM project manager, will present on the proposed Golden Currant Solar Project and provide a short overview of the BLM Renewable Energy Application Evaluation Process. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer session, which I will assist in facilitating with responses from the Bureau of Land Management, and then we will open up the forum for public input. We will then close out for the evening. This meeting is being recorded, and the video will be posted to the project information web page at the address on your screen. We will also post the address in the chat. So if you look and you see your chat feature, you will see that address. Okay, now we will turn it over to Shauna, the Las Vegas Field Manager, for a short introduction and overview of the participants and presenters for this evening's public information forum. Shauna?
Sorry, my computer locked up there for a second, but it looks like I'm back. So thank you, Kenda, and good evening, everyone. My name is Shauna Duman, and I am the field manager for the BLM Las Vegas Field Office. And I definitely want to start off by thanking everyone again for joining us in this meeting tonight. As Kenda said, we are presenting on the Golden Currant Solar Project and providing information on where we are in the process and how you can provide input. Your input will help the BLM analyze the appropriateness of a solar project in this location. Jessica Heaton is the BLM project manager and will be providing the presentation shortly. You have also just heard from Kenda Polio, who is the principal for KP Environmental, and she will be moderating the Q&A session as well as the public input session. On this slide, you will also see the BLM specialists working behind the scenes to provide answers to the questions you put in the Q&A feature that Kenda will go over later in the presentation. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Kenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tonight's forum will provide opportunities for questions and public input. There will be a question and answer session where written questions can be submitted. There will also be an opportunity for verbal public input towards the end of the information forum. We'll have more information on both of these opportunities later in the presentation. The BLM is also providing an opportunity after the information forum for public input and questions until August 5th, 2022. Input and questions can be submitted via email to the email address on screen or via mail to the BLM Southern Nevada Field Office. That is also listed on the screen. We will also provide this information later in the forum. Please note that before including your address, phone number, email address, or other personal identifying information in your comment, you should be aware that your entire comment, including that personal identifying information, may be publicly available at any time. While you can ask that your personal identifying information be withheld from the public review, BLM cannot guarantee that they'll be able to do so. Anonymity is not allowed for submissions from organizations or businesses or from individuals identifying themselves as representatives or officials of organizations or businesses. With that, now Jessica will present an overview of the Golden Currant Solar Project, as well as the BLM Solar Application, Evaluation, and Variance Process.
Thank you, Kenda. On the screen, you will see a map of the Pahrump Valley. This information forum is for the Golden Currant Solar Project, which is outlined on the map in yellow. Also shown on the map are other approved and proposed solar projects within the Pahrump Valley. The Yellow Pine Solar Project is shown in purple on the map. The project was authorized with a record of decision in the fall of 2020 and is currently under construction. The BLM previously held application evaluation public information forums for the Copper Rays and Rough Hat Clark County solar projects, shown on the map in dark blue and light blue, respectively. Both projects received favorable application evaluations. The next step for the Copper Ray Solar Project in the darker blue and the Rough Hat Clark County Solar Project in light blue will be publication of notices of intent to prepare environmental impact statements and resource management plan amendments. The publication of the notice of intent will kick off public scoping periods that will include their own virtual public scoping forums and public comment periods. All comments received during public information forums for those projects will be brought forward and considered during the environmental review for those projects. Application review for the Rough Hat Nye County Solar Project, shown on the map outlined in red, is currently paused at the request of the project sponsor while they work with the county and community on the concerns that were heard about the project. Noble Solar has submitted a right-of-way application for the Golden Currant Solar Project. The right-of-way request is to utilize public land in Clark County for the construction, operation, and eventual decommissioning of a proposed solar facility and interconnection to the regional transmission system. The proposed project is a 400 megawatt photovoltaic solar facility with battery storage, located on approximately 4,364 acres of BLM administered lands, 5 miles southeast of the town of Pahrump and 26 miles west of Las Vegas. The map on the screen shows the proposed solar facility in red near the Nevada-California border. The proposed generation tie line runs northeast of the project, parallel with Toccopa Springs Road, to the approved Trout Canyon substation, shown as an orange box on the top right of the map. The Trout Canyon substation was approved with the Yellow Pine project recently completed construction. This map shows the location of the proposed Golden Currant Solar Project in relation to local roads and streets within the Pahrump area, including Toccopa Springs Road, Cathedral Canyon Road, and Front Sight Road. The photovoltaic modules installed on site would convert sunlight to direct current electricity, which is then collected and converted into alternating current electricity through a system of inverters. The on-site transformers would step up the alternating current electricity and deliver it to a proposed on-site substation. Once the electricity reaches the on-site substation, it would be delivered off-site to the BLM-approved Trout Canyon substation, or the point of interconnection, via generation tie lines. In addition, battery storage facilities will be constructed on site. The preliminary plan of development for the proposed project is available online at the project website, which we will provide a link for in the chat. The flow chart on the screen shows the application evaluation process, which begins with the submittal of a solar project application. The application is then prioritized based on the regulations and involves interdisciplinary team review. This helps the BLM prioritize and process the solar application workload more efficiently. After prioritization, the BLM reviews where they fit within the district's work plan based on their priority level, and once work starts on the application, initiates the solar application evaluation process. This includes the variance process we will discuss in more detail later. The application evaluation and the variance process involves public information forums, agency and tribal coordination. When the evaluation is complete, the BLM will determine whether to continue to process the application. If the BLM determines to continue processing, that is when the National Environmental Policy Act environmental review process, including analysis and public involvement, would initiate. These public forums for the Golden Currant Solar Project are part of the early stages of the Renewable Energy Project application evaluation process. In 2012, the BLM and Department of Energy issued the final programmatic environmental impact statement for solar energy development in 6 southwestern states. This document provided information to improve efficiency and created processes to standardize the review of solar applications in a more environmentally responsible manner. The solar PEIS designated solar energy zones that are suited for utility scale production of solar energy. Outside of the established solar energy zones are variance areas. Applications within variance areas are considered on a case-by-case basis, based on environmental considerations and coordination with federal, state, and local government agencies, tribes, and public input. Solar development in variance areas is subject to the BLM's variance process, which is separate from and comes before the NEPA process. The Golden Currant Solar Project is located in a variance area and is subject to the variance process. The variance process is part of the application evaluation process described in the BLM right-of-way regulations. The variance process focuses on collection and evaluation of resource data with input from the public, tribes, and federal, state, and local governments. This input and evaluation of data helps BLM to assess the appropriateness of the solar proposal. Tonight's public information forum and the public input period that lasts until August 5th provide you an opportunity to have an input on the Golden Currant Solar Project. The information gathered during the meeting and the input period will inform the application evaluation and variance process and assist BLM in making a determination on whether to continue to process the application and begin NEPA. Currently, we are still in the early stages of processing the Golden Currant Solar Project application. After the public information forums have concluded, we will continue to gather public input on the project until August 5th, 2022. The information we gather, including input from the public, agencies, and tribes, will be presented to the BLM State Director, who will, with concurrence with the BLM Director, make the determination on whether the project will move forward to the NEPA process. The determination on this project is anticipated in the fall of 2022. Helpful input and information from you would include potential local concerns, opportunities, and barriers related to the proposed project. We would also appreciate input about the type of use within the proposed project area or resource concerns. Some examples could include types of recreational activities and opportunities that are conducted within the project area, resource concerns for wildlife, vegetation, visual resources, and any other local factors. For the projects subject to the variance process, like Golden Currant Solar Project, the BLM will also consider the variance factors described in the solar PEIS. Any input you may have related to the variance factors would also be helpful at this time. A detailed list of the various factors can be found at the link on the slide. We will also provide this link in the chat. At this time, I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Kenda, who will begin the question and answer session.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start the question and answer section of tonight's presentation. You will see in the bottom of your screen a Q&A feature. So on the screen, you can see what that looks like. You can type your question in to that Q&A feature and hit send. That question will then go in the queue. You will see that BLM will answer your question either live. I will facilitate asking Jessica to respond, and you will see us answer it live, or you will see it answered in writing, and you will see that in that Q&A box. Go to the next one. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So we're going to go ahead right now and start with the Q&A section. Okay. Again, we want to get through as many questions as we can. So bear with us. We will be taking them in the order as we receive them. And again, check both in writing and as we go through it verbally. Okay. First question that came in. Is the project in the same area that the endangered tortoise were released from the yellow pine project? And what are the plans for protecting them?
Thank you, Kenda. No, Golden Currant is not located within the translocation area for the yellow pine project. The BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service work in coordination to reduce those impacts by requiring the tortoise to be translocated prior to construction of the solar facility. The BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service designated the Trout Canyon and Stump Springs translocation areas that can potentially be used as recipient sites for the tortoises from the Golden Currant Solar Project. Measures to reduce impacts could include post-construction monitoring for 12 months, health assessments, treatment if needed. Specific measures would be developed in a desert tortoise translocation plan during the environmental review process.
Okay, thank you, Jessica. Again, I'll remind everyone as the questions are coming in, please use the Q&A feature to type your questions in. Okay. We have another question that came in. Jessica, where will the energy go and who is it sold to?
The project sponsor, Noble Solar LLC, has indicated that a purchase for the power proposed to be generated from the project site has not been identified yet. The Golden Currant Solar Project proposes to interconnect to the Trout Canyon substation, which would allow the power to be provided to the California Independent System Operator and NV Energy Systems. Noble Solar LLC has included job creation estimates for the proposed project in the preliminary plan of development, which is available online at the project website provided earlier in the chat.
Thank you. Okay, I see some additional questions coming in. Okay, Jessica, will the developer be required to pay for solar panel recycling at the end of the panel's life?
If the project is approved, the developer will be required to provide a bond that will ensure that the site is reclaimed after the useful life of the project.
Very good. Okay, again, we see some additional questions coming in. Just give us just a brief moment. I do want to let everyone know we may pause a couple times just as we get the questions coming in. So again, thank you for your patience. We very much appreciate your time, and we'll go ahead and continue as these questions come in. Okay, Jessica, has the project proponent conducted an environmental survey? Has there been an invite to the tribal nations for input.
Thank you, Kenda. Resource-specific surveys for the project are ongoing, including botanical, wildlife, and cultural surveys. An environmental analysis for the project utilizing the National Environmental Policy Act process would be completed if a favorable variance determination is made. The BLM has sent invitations to 13 tribes to initiate government-to-government consultation. Tribal consultation for this project is ongoing.
Thank you. Okay, again, I am very happy to see that there are questions coming in. So again, thank you everyone for your participation and continued involvement by asking questions. Okay, Jessica, we have another one that just came in. What would happen to the mesquite woodlands around Cathedral Canyon?
Within the project area, there are approximately 14 acres of mat mesquite busk. This is from preliminary botanical data survey. And we do not have a good estimate at this time of how many mesquite trees are within the project area. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and the environmental review, National Environmental Policy Act process is initiated, relevant measures to avoid, minimize, and/or mitigate potential impacts to mesquite trees would be considered.
Thank you very much. Okay, there is another question. Are we being asked to sell a portion of our land?
My apologies, Kenda, I'm sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I apologize. I was asking, making sure that my mic is on and just pausing for 1 second. Jessica, can you hear me now? Jessica, I think you're on mute. Jessica, can you go off mute, please? Can you hear me?
My apologies, we're dealing with some technical difficulties in the room.
So we'll pause for 1 second. Again, if everyone can bear with us 1 minute, we'll make sure that all of the mics are working. There are technical difficulties sometimes. Again, thank you all for the continued participation, but let's go ahead and I will get to the next question here in just 1 second.
All right, my apologies, Kenda. We've worked out the technical difficulties in the room. I'm going to repeat the question. You asked if we're being asked to sell a portion of the land for the project. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. The Golden Currant Solar Project is sited entirely on public lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management. There is no sale of public lands proposed for this project.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, next question. Okay, it was said in the presentation that both Copper Rays and Rough Hat Clark projects would have plan amendments. Is that over visual resources? Will there not be a plan amendment for Golden Currant?
As part of the solar variance process, one of the variance factors that the BLM will consider is whether the proposed project is in a conformance with decisions in the current land use plan, including visual resource management class designations. The BLM is still reviewing the Golden Currant Solar Project through the variance process to determine confirmation with the applicable resource management plan and amendments. If the BLM determines a land use plan amendment is needed for the proposed project, the BLM land use planning processes, including public involvement requirements, would be utilized. Information on the land use planning process can be found at the BLM website.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll also note that the website is listed on the bottom of the screen. So you can see that here. We will also show both the email address and mailing address in a subsequent slide. But I did want to make sure that you did see that. And there is in your chat feature some of the email links or the links that we just mentioned, as well as previous links that were mentioned throughout the presentation. So please visit the chat feature at the bottom of your screen to see those links as well. Okay, Jessica, the next question. How close is the project to Stump Springs ACEC?
The Stump Springs ACEC lies adjacent to the Golden Currant Project area, south of Tacopa Road.
Thank you very much. Okay, a question about water. How much water will be needed to complete the Golden Currant Solar Project?
The plan of development indicates 1,000 acre-feet use during construction and approximately 225 acre-feet per year for operation and maintenance.
Great, thank you. Okay, we still have questions coming in. We still have some more time. I will remind everyone that we will start our public input section of the program here once we get through the questions. Also, make sure you are checking some of the questions as we move into that will be answered in the written format in your Q&A feature. But with that, let's go ahead and go on to the next question. Okay, Jessica. A person is concerned about visual and proximate impacts on the Old Spanish National Historic Trail. The project's southwest corner is only a mile from Stump Springs, a major feature of the OSNHT. What figure is BLM using for the breadth of the OHNHT for assessment of impact? The official route of the OSNHT is on National Park Service's website.
Thank you, Kenda. If the project receives a favorable variance determination, potential impacts to the Old Spanish National Historic Trail corridor would be analyzed during the environmental review National Environmental Policy Act process. This could include preparation of an inventory and impacts analysis report in compliance with the National Trail System Act and with the guidelines in the BLM Manual 6280. The management corridor for the Old Spanish National Historic Trail has not yet been designated. The BLM has established an interim corridor for the Old Spanish National Historic Trail that is 5 miles from the center line of either side of the trail.
Thank you very much, Jessica. Okay, we have another question that came in about tortoises. So we'll go ahead with that one. Stump Springs is where the last batch of tortoises were killed. Waiting for the environmental process is not acceptable. What plans are there to save the desert tortoise, and what new plans are coming into play?
The BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service work in coordination to develop translocation plans prior to construction of the proposed solar facility. Translocation plans are developed based on current site-specific information. Predator surveys will be conducted in translocation areas prior to the translocation of tortoises to assess predator diversity, abundance, and the likelihood of predation. Additionally, the BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service are considering multiple protective measures, including the release of tortoises into pre-existing burrows within translocation areas during the late fall, prior to winter dormant season, where they will be temporarily pinned. Pinning will serve to protect desert tortoises from predation through their winter brumation cycle and allow the individuals to acclimate to their new environment ahead of unpinning in the following spring when they become active.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have another question. It appears that about 40% of the project site is eroded badlands topography, and they see that the canyons would be avoided. Are there paleo sites in the badlands? And is the BLM worried that crushing topography could create more dust issues?
Thank you, Kenda. The construction of solar energy facilities may disrupt drainage patterns, cause surface disturbances, and soil compaction, resulting in increased erosion, runoff, dust, and sedimentation. The solar PEIS has required design features for air quality and soil, which would be incorporated into the project. Construction-related impacts are mitigated by implementing best management practices, site-specific mitigation measures, and standard operating procedures that would reduce soil erosion potentially. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, mitigations would be determined during the environmental review, National Environmental Policy Act phase of the project. The project would also have to comply with Clark County permit requirements, such as an air quality permit. Paleontologists of the project area would be evaluated based on the potential of significant paleontologic resources. If the project is given favorable variance determination, potential for significant paleontological resources will be evaluated during the NEPA process.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, Jessica, how will the site be reclaimed?
If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, the project would proceed to the environmental review NEPA process. A draft decommissioning plan is typically included as an appendix in the NEPA document and analysis, and the final would be posted to e-planning if the project is approved.
Okay, great. What other plant species occur in the area of the proposed development project site?
Pahrump Valley buckwheat, which is a BLM sensitive species, has potential habitat within the project area. During the 2022 botanical surveys, the 2022 botanical surveys have not yet been finalized, but there were skeletons of past season plants that were tentatively identified as Pahrump Valley buckwheat, and in one area within the project site. Botanical reports have not been finalized at this time.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question. How many Mojave yucca do you anticipate being on the site? How many creosote do you estimate as well?
From the preliminary botanical survey results, an estimated 13,085 cacti and yucca are present within the survey area, with cacti and yucca densities increases as elevation increases up. The predominant species of cacti and yucca found within the project site include Mojave yucca, Wiggins cola, cotton top cactus, hedgehog cactus, beavertail cactus, and matted cola. Creosote density is still being quantified.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have another question that came in. This person is asking about BLMs. Is BLM's, the assumption was BLM is supposed to be a good steward of conserving lands that it manages. This person saw the devastation that the Yellow Pine Project did to that area, and they would like to know what the reasons are for which the BLM considers this second project, and what devastation or destruction would be occurring.
Thank you, Kenda. Although the proposed projects are located in a similar area, BLM received individual applications for the 5 standalone projects. Each has potential site-specific resource concerns. Since the applications are standalone projects, once the application evaluation process is complete, including completion of the public information forms for each project, the BLM will make individual determinations for each application. In addition to the public information forms, each project will have a public input period that will provide time before and after the public forums for additional public input. For the Golden Currant Solar Project, the public input period will end on August 5th.
Great, thank you. Okay, a question about herbicides. What herbicides would be permitted to be sprayed on site, and would they pose harm to insects and animals around the site and the nearby Stump Springs ACEC?
Only those approved in the record of decision in the EIS for the vegetation treatment in the 17 Western states and the Southern Nevada District Office Programmatic Biological Opinion.
Thank you. Okay, again, thank you all for participating. We have lots of questions coming in. We will be, again, continuing prior to our public input portion, but we will be, again, taking only the written questions once we do enter into that public input portion. So I just wanted to remind everyone of the process, but let's go ahead and continue. Okay, Jessica, how much would Noble Solar pay to lease the land?
The BLM will calculate acreage rent on or before the date of issuance of a right-of-way grant. The BLM will charge acreage rent on an annual basis by calculating the annual acreage rent by multiplying the entire number of acres authorized in the right-of-way grant, or lease by the appropriate per acre rate. BLM will charge a megawatt capacity fee once generation of electricity starts on an annual basis based on megawatt capacity fee by multiplying the approved megawatt capacity by the appropriate megawatt capacity fee. BLM recently updated the rent guidance and rates.
Thank you very much. Okay, another question about water. Jessica, where would Noble Solar try to source water for the project?
Noble Solar has stated in the preliminary plan of development that most potable water source of construction and operation phase water for the proposed project would be water purchased from a commercial source or a user with an existing appropriation. It would be trucked in or piped to the project site where it would be stored in an on-site water storage tank. The project does not anticipate drilling any new water wells. The Nevada Division of Water Resources is responsible for the allocation of water resources within the state of Nevada. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination, the BLM will consider impacts from water use during the Environmental Review National Environmental Policy Act process. BLM considers water both surface and groundwater within the border context of all resources on BLM administered lands and their interactions as they relate to BLM responsibilities.
Thank you very much. Okay, a question about the construction of the facility. Won't the construction of the Golden Currant, Yellow Pine, and other large solar sites in the area create a checkerboard of bulldozed sites? Wouldn't such a checkerboard result in impacts to the territory, migration routes, and breeding of desert creatures?
If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and proceeds to the environmental review NEPA process, impacts to small mammals and reptiles during construction of the solar facility would be analyzed. These impacts could include temporary displacement from the existing habitat and potential injury or mortality during construction.
Okay, thank you. Okay, again, we have lots of questions still coming in. So again, thank you for everyone's participation. Jessica, will this project be sold to another operator after it is built?
The BLM has no knowledge at this time regarding the current applicant's future ownership plans for the Golden Currant project.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned that a decision would be made on this by the fall. When do you expect the botanical survey to be completed?
The botanical surveys are underway, and we do not have an estimated date of completion at this time.
Thank you. Okay, again, we have some additional questions coming in. We'll pause for 1 minute just to remind everyone that, again, we will be going into the public input section of the program here in a few minutes. We will continue to take questions, and we will respond to those once we enter the public comment section. We'll be responding to those in writing. We will also, please note in your chat the links that we have provided for additional information, as well as the website, which is listed on the bottom of your screen. Okay, another question just came in for us to ask. Okay, how will the project impact the Sacred Salt Song Trail as well as the Old Spanish Trail?
Thank you, Kenda. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and the Environmental Review National Environmental Policy Act process is initiated, types and alternatives of replanting of vegetation species within the project area would be analyzed. During the environmental review process, the BLM would make efforts to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to vegetation. Mitigation measures have not been developed at this time. Currently, we are requesting information about potential impacts within the site. If the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and the Environmental Review National Environmental Policy Act process is initiated, relevant mitigation would be identified and addressed as part of the environmental review process.
Great, thank you. Okay, another question. Okay, how can you justify that these projects that are taking out Joshua trees and Yucca forest when the desert landscapes will not come back or take hundreds or thousands of years to return to their original state?
Just say you're gonna take a minute.
My apologies, Kenda. We're just going to need 1 moment here in the room.
Okay, with that, again, what we'll do is I will explain while we're taking a minute, the public input section that will start. I will let everyone know that we will be taking public input in the order of how you registered. So there is a list of people that have registered and did ask to take public comment. So we'll start with those first, and then we'll move to anyone else that may wish to provide public comment that either did not identify that they wanted to make the comment, or that may have thought of a public comment based on the presentation. Okay, we'll pause for a moment and I will ask the next.
Salt song question to clarify the answer.
Kenda, one moment. We're actually going to go back to the salt song question. We just
Sure.
wanted to ensure that we appropriately responded.
Absolutely. Do you want to just maybe identify which question that you, or why don't you just go ahead and make sure that you're able to clarify that now?
Correct. The question we received, if I recall correctly, they were asking how will the project impact the Sacred Salt Song Trail as well as the Old Spanish Trail? And the BLM has initiated government-to-government consultation with 13 Indian tribes for this project. And we just wanted to ensure that we provided the correct answer. Of those 13 tribes, if the project receives a favorable variance determination and proceeds to environmental review, then potential impacts to the Old Spanish Trail, historic trail corridor, and the Sacred Salt Song Trail would be analyzed.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. And hopefully that did clarify and provide some additional information. We can go back and to the question that I did ask, which was about Joshua Tree and the Yucca forest, and basically, the desert landscapes and the impacts to those. So if you want to go ahead and respond to that one.
Yep, thank you. Yep, again, if the project receives a favorable application evaluation determination and the environmental review is initiated, types and alternatives to replanting that vegetation species within the project area would be analyzed. During the environmental review process, the BLM would make an effort, again, to avoid, minimize, and mitigate impacts to vegetation. Mitigation measures have not been developed at this time. We are currently requesting information about potential impacts within the site. If the project receives a favorable evaluation determination and the environmental review process is initiated, relevant mitigation would be identified and addressed as part of the environmental review process.
Okay, thank you. I do know that I just want to remind everyone again, there are a lot of questions coming in. So we do have, as we stated earlier in the meeting, that there are a number of moderators that are going to assist in answering those questions. We are going to have to move to the public input portion just because we do have so many people that would like to make public input. So we just want to make sure that we get there and we allow everyone that opportunity. So I just wanted, again, to remind everyone of that as we look at the next questions that are coming in. So again, if you can give us 1 second to identify, again, some of them are going to be answered in writing as well as we'll be able to take just a few more. Okay. Give us 1 more minute. And as I said, we have very good participation this evening, so we do appreciate that. Okay, a question just came in about impacts to kit foxes. Can you discuss that, please?
Sure. If the kit foxes den identified during the ground surveys where ground disturbing activities are to occur, all dens and cavities identified must be thoroughly inspected by a qualified biologist prior to this activity.
Thank you. Okay, bear with us for one more minute, and we'll try to get a couple more. Okay, I know that we have a number of our moderators that are going to be answering questions in writing. Let's go ahead and take, Jessica, one more question. That way we can get this answered and allow time for public input, which obviously we want to make sure that we get to. Again, want to remind everyone that if you think of additional questions and public input, you will be able to provide that up until and we'll get to that but you can provide it by email or mail. And again, more information is on the website. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and move to our last question. Jessica, how were the variance areas determined in the solar PEIS of 2012? Were areas surveyed on the ground, and what level of detail of analysis was done?
The solar PIS designated solar energy zones that are well suited for utility scale production of solar energy, and also designated variance areas on BLM administered lands that are outside of the solar energy zones and not otherwise excluded by the solar PIS. Variance areas are available for utility scale solar energy development and are evaluated through the BLM's established variance process on a case-by-case basis. Pahrump Valley is designated as a variance area. The lands being requested in the application were identified in the solar PEIS as variance lands. The BLM is currently considering the appropriateness of the application utilizing the variance process that was identified in the solar PEIS. The current public input meetings and public input period are a critical piece of the variance process and will inform BLM's decision on whether to continue processing the application by initiating the Environmental Review National Environmental Policy Act process.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. And we are moving into the verbal input section of the evening. So as I mentioned earlier, we will accept in the order of registration. Once you will see your name on the screen if you did identify that you wanted to provide public comment. Once I call your name, if you could please use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of the screen. When we see your hand raised, the facilitator will open up your microphone. If you're on the phone, you can raise your hand with *9 and then unmute and mute using *6. You will see a timer on the next slide, and this will display the amount of time you have. Again, we are reserving 2 minutes per public input comment. Your input will be included in the project record. Okay, next slide. BLM wants to hear from all the members of the public. However, out of respect for everyone's participation and input, we do ask that you follow these guidelines. Please stay within your allotted time. You will see as the time is running out, it will flash red. We ask that you watch this, and we ask that you be cognizant of that and wrap up your comment. Please be respectful of others that are speaking, and please refrain from profanity. If these guidelines are not followed, your microphone will be muted and we will have to move on to the next person. Again, we don't want to do that, but we do ask that you stay with these guidelines. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Okay, the first person that we have listed is Caroline Logue. Can you raise your hand, please? And our facilitator, Victoria, will unmute your mic. Victoria, do you see the hand raised? Okay, I see a hand raised by, who's the, okay, we see someone with their hand raised, but it is a person that I think is on a different, is a little bit later. Okay, we do not see Caroline. Okay, Caroline, if you are on and you would like to make a comment, please use the raise the hand feature a little bit later. We will try to go back. Okay, the next person is David Perlman. David Perlman, are you on and would you like to make a comment? We do not see that person on screen, so I'll give it one more minute. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next person. Okay, Tina Bon Cullen. Okay, we do see that Tina is on. Tina, if you want to raise your hand. If you don't raise your hand, we will move on. But if you use the raise the hand feature at the bottom of your screen, we'll go ahead and unmute your mic and you will be able to make a comment. Okay, I do not see your hand raised. Okay, we'll move on. Joy Centers. Joy Centers. Okay, we do not see Joy Centers, but we do see that Tina's mic is unmuted. Victoria, do you want to try to unmute her mic and see if she does want to make a comment? Okay, Tina, we can always come back. Okay, the next person is Kevin Emmerich. Okay, we do see Kevin and we see your hand raised. Kevin, you should be, okay, well, I can hear you.
I hope you can hear me. My name's Kevin Emmerich. My organization's Basin and Range Watch. I asked you about the visual resources and the plan amendment. You're going to amend the Copper Rays Solar Project plan and the plan amendment for Copper Rays and Rough Hat Clark. And I believe that's over visual resources because of what you have called a visual class 3, which allows some development, but it can't dominate the landscape. And solar definitely does do that. For Golden Currant, the problem is it's a class 4, and that encourages development that dominates the landscape, but that's based on an outdated resource plan from 1997. It's about 2 miles or so from the Old Spanish Trail. The Old Spanish National Historic Trail, managed by the Park Service, was designated after the Las Vegas Resource Management Plan. Had you updated that plan, you might designate the whole area that's Golden Currant as a visual class 2 or a visual class 3, which would discourage that kind of solar development. You're all telling us that you're going to have a Nevada-wide update resource management plan coming up next summer. And if you would just wait on this review, whatever the company thinks, who cares what they think? This is a lot of important resources here. If you would just wait on this review, you could update that plan, and maybe we could update the visual class and stop this one from happening. Listen to all the people who have concerned about this. This is going to be a nightmare. It's going to be a resource nightmare on badlands topography, desert tortoise, historical resources, public lands access, fugitive dust. It's one of those where the list goes on and on. Thank you very much. That's my comment.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being cognizant of time. It did stop in the middle. But again, I do appreciate you being cognizant of time. So thank you very much for that. I also did want to make sure everyone, if we have not called you, if you can please lower your hand or not raise your hand until your name is called, that would be helpful. We are scrolling through a number of participants, so we do appreciate your consideration on that. Okay, let's go to the next one. Kim Hover. Kim, I see your hand raised.
Good evening. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you and good evening. I just had a quick question on how many wild horses and burros will be impacted by all the projects current and future in these areas. Thank you.
Thank you. I do also want to remind everyone that this is a public input portion. So we are taking public input. We will not be coming back and responding verbally to those comments. So you can put that if you already haven't in the Q&A feature. So I did want to remind everyone that this is the public input section of the program. But again, Kim, thank you for that. Okay, the next one is Judy
If
Brampman.
it's Q&A, then why are you not answering?
So the Q&A portion was previous. It was during the Q&A section. This is public input. So what we are doing is taking public input, and we can respond to that question if you put it in the Q&A feature, and we will write a response for you. It's the way the program is laid out to allow as many people as possible to provide public input. So again, we do appreciate that. Okay, next is Kim Hover, and I saw Kim's. Oh, I'm sorry. Kim just went. Judy Brampman, and I thought I saw Judy, but let's make sure. Okay, we do not see Judy. Okay. Teresa Baltoldis, and again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, but Teresa. Okay, we see
Yes.
you ready to go. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, thank you. I'm really concerned about this project, and I want to speak very strongly against it. I really hope that this doesn't get any type of approval at all to move forward. It's going to create so much destruction for so much of our wonderful resources, plants and animals. It's going to raise dust, waste water. It just seems it's like a very, very bad idea. The tortoises that have already been removed from one spot will be moved again. And I understand a bunch of them died in that process. So a whole bunch more will certainly die in the next process. There are so many reasons. And it seems to me that there are other places that we can put solar that don't have to destroy our wonderful and undeveloped desert that I'd like to see preserved as a resource for all people and all creatures who are using it now. It's going to be irreversibly damaged. That's my comment.
Thank you. The next person is Michael Fender. Okay, I see the hand raised. You can
Ready?
go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Well, As a resident of Pahrump, and I've been watching how this is playing out over here, down where the yellow pine is and where this other project wants to go. I know there's plans for about 7 projects, maybe even 8, to encompass 17,200 acres of BLM land for these projects. Unfortunately, what this is going to do is not only is it going to be along the old highway, Tacoma Highway, and along Highway 160. As you enter Pahrump Valley from Las Vegas, you're going to see these solar farms coming down over the hill. Now, I understand there's been a lot of damage out there. I've actually been out to Yellow Pine. I've seen that, so I know what's going to happen out here with this golden currant. It's going to be the same thing. And quite honestly, this is not what people want to see when they drive through Las Vegas, from Las Vegas, or through the Nevada desert. Our solar farms are lined up along the highway. The use of easy and simple areas to install solar farms is absolutely ridiculous. They have the technology anymore to put these farms in other places throughout Nevada. Nevada encompasses, there's 448 million acres of BLM land in Nevada alone. And here they want to use up this small little pinhead of 17,200 right here just south of Pahrump. Well, quite honestly, this is a pretty bad deal for all of us in the long run. Well, everybody take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker that signed up is Susie Hertz. Let's see if. Okay, we do not see Susie Hertz. Okay, our next one. We have an additional group that signed up. Okay, Christina Sanchez. And Christina, I did see your hand raised earlier, so I think that you may be, there you go. Okay, if you want to go ahead.
Thank you. So my comment would be, it's unclear as to what flora are occurring. I heard that plant species like the mesquite and Larea, and I forgot what species of yucca. I heard Yucca brimifolia. I am just curious as to, actually it's not on that curiosity. It just, if the goal is to protect the environment, protect the climate, these species that I just mentioned, if they are truly, I know there's hasn't been a botanical survey as of yet, but these plant species are one long-lived species. And here we know in the desert that things in the desert grow slow. They're not quick growing. So these long-lived, slow-growing plant species that, take hundreds and thousands of years to come back after disturbance are what are helping to mitigate climate change in terms of storing atmospheric carbon dioxide. Now, somebody made a public comment that the solar can be placed on other areas. If the BLM's goal is to protect the environment and the land, then it is your duty to protect the land by saying no to development projects such as solar, because it's going to not only disturb the environment locally, it's going to have an impact on the fauna that rely on many of these plant species for food, but it's also going to release carbon back into the atmosphere. And we're seeing climate change accelerating. It is extremely unsustainable to clear cut this beautiful land to put in solar panels when we can surely find better places to place them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, we do appreciate everyone being cognizant of the timer. It is appreciated, as we do have a number of people to get through. Okay, Sharon Mintz. Okay, we see your hand raised. If you want to go ahead.
Good evening. I just want to state again that I believe forcing the public to weigh in on these one solar farm at a time is a huge waste of the public's time. This piecemeal process does not take into consideration the cumulative impacts of destroying thousands of acres of desert habitat that we're giving away for money. We're tortoise owners. We know that the tortoise we got last year has taken a year to finally stop trying to go back to Las Vegas, where he was turned loose. When you move those tortoises, they have no burrow, they have no way to find food, they have no way to survive the heat, and they die. How many tortoises have to die before somebody listens? Since they cannot come up with a plan where the tortoises will live, they should not be allowed to move one stinking tortoise. And to tell me when I ask what's the plan for the next farm to not have all of these deaths, well, we look at that when we get to that part of the process. We shouldn't be taking applications if we don't have a way to protect the animals that live there and belong. I do not believe that BLM is paying any attention to this critical public input, and I believe the decisions have already been made. But I just do not understand when we know so much about these desert tortoises, it's against the law to pick them up, because they can't find their way home. They can't get to safety. So again, I'm begging somebody to take responsibility for the ones who have already died. I still can't believe nobody's responsible for putting them in front of a badger den. So something has to change. And I don't believe that we're going to stop the solar farms because we have a president who says we have to have them, but we have to protect the tortoises. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person is Deborah Savitt. Okay, we do not see Deborah on the line. Okay, Patrick Donnelly. Okay, I see your hand raised if you want to go ahead.
Hi, my name is Patrick Donnelly. I'm Great Basin Director with the Center for Biological Diversity, and I'm a resident of Shoshone, California, and a former resident of Pahrump. BLM Nevada has a big problem on their hands. They have a congressional and executive mandate to permit 25 gigawatts of renewable energy on public lands, but they have absolutely no plan on how to do it. The idea that each of these projects is a standalone proposal unrelated to any other is a farce. The proposals on the table now would turn the Pahrump Valley into a de facto solar energy zone. This is, by its nature, a landscape scale project requiring landscape scale planning. California faced a similar dilemma several years ago, and their solution was the DRECP, the Desert Renewable Energy and Conservation Plan. Regional level planning enabled reduced conflict over renewable energy in the DRECP planning area and resulted in millions of acres of conservation. And let's not forget, nobody litigated the DRECP. BLM Nevada needs to conduct landscape level planning both statewide, but also at the localized scale in the Pahrump Valley. If you're going to proceed with turning this area into an industrial scale energy production zone, you must have a regional mitigation scheme to offset those impacts. This could include designating new protective areas such as ACECs, using design features to minimize impacts on site, and enacting a comprehensive off-site mitigation plan. Just sticking tortoises in burrows and calling it mitigation is unacceptable. Without regional level planning, you will not be able to achieve your renewable energy goals because, as you see from all the angry people on this phone call right now, there is going to be obstacles put in the way of developing these projects. And, the whole process may end up grinding to a halt as one by one these projects are challenged based on the inadequacy of environmental review and the inadequacy of mitigation and unacceptable impacts. So there's going to need to be a regional level plan in order to move forward in any way with these projects. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christian Gerlich. Okay, we see your hand raised. You can go ahead.
Hello, thank you. My name is Christian Gerlich, like Gerlich, Nevada. I am a resident born and raised in the Las Vegas Valley. I have seen the dramatic loss of our public lands due to suburban sprawl. It is unconscionable that the Bureau of Land Management will allow these further degradation of our public lands and desert landscapes that take literally thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of years to get to the point where they're at. There will be tremendous cumulative impacts from all of these solar projects. So again, having us as the public comment on these individually is a farce. It is horrible. They will have cumulative impacts, including this Golden Currant project, which will only add through the use of these dark solar panels to the urban heat island effect that has been well documented from solar fields. Beyond that, The clearing of the desert living crust with cryptobiotic soils will allow for loose dust to get kicked up over the hump from Pahrump into the Las Vegas Valley, further degrading the air quality of the Las Vegas Valley. For individual residents like myself who have suffered from asthma my entire life, communities of color, low-income communities that struggle with poor air quality, this is only going to add to those problems and issues. The environmental justice directive under President Bill Clinton requires Bureau of Land Management to and any Department of Interior agency or entity to look at the environmental justice impacts of any of its actions. So this is clearly something that totally goes against those previous executive orders that require the Bureau of Land Management to consider environmental justice impacts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, Joni Hawley. Okay, we see your hand raised. You can go ahead. Okay, Joni, if you would, you should be able to unmute your mic. I did see your hand was lowered. Oh, there you are.
There you go.
Great.
Okay. I just wanted to go on record that I am against this project. A lot of people have already covered points that I was going to, so I'm not going to go over that again. But, you know, the water that's being used out of Pahrump Valley, our watershed for projects that are in a different county. There's too many of these projects, you know, totaling around 20,000 acres if they all go in. And like they said, you know, this is going to be a solar field out here, nothing else. Destroying the pristine desert habitat, including, you know, issues with the endangered tortoise and other animals. I don't know if you have gone out and seen the Yellow Pine project, but it's been a complete dust storm out there in recent days. You know, there's other places to put the solar, rooftops, parking lots. And I just feel like this is all about the money. It just is convenient for these companies to be close to the highway. And I think that BLM needs to look at, I mean, we're not going to stop it, but BLM needs to look at other areas to move these to if they're going to put them in. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, William Helmer. Okay, I see your hand raised. Do you want to go ahead? You can.
Yes, hello. Yes, I think this project needs to be rejected out of hand. It obviously doesn't fit in this area, especially looking at the cumulative impacts and seeing the destruction of the Yellow Pine project. That has to stop. I mean, draw the line right there. You see what's going to happen. And this one is even closer to Stump Spring, a very culturally sensitive area. The old Spanish Trail goes nearby. There's just so many impacts. And the question is, why should Pahrump Valley be an energy sacrifice zone? It's just going to be wall-to-wall solar. Yeah, the visual impacts, the impacts on traditional cultural landscapes are going to be just intense. So I think out of hand, this should be a quick decision to not waste people's times or worry about whether this very special area is going to be destroyed, because all we have to do is just look up the road from where this is supposed to be, Yellow Pine, and it's just absolutely unnecessary. And the whole, my question about variance, how it was determined was not answered, but there's a question about these huge variance areas that are supposed to be decided case by case. I don't think there was a great level of analysis to choose these variance areas 10 years ago in the solar PEIS, and that is a big problem. And we're dealing with it now 10 years down the road. So no project, that's the way to go with this one. It's very simple to decide this one. Thank you.
Thank you for being respectful of the time. Okay, Jack Pritchett is the next person and we see his hand up. So if you unmute, we'll go ahead. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. I want to say, first of all, that I am extremely concerned about climate change, and I want to see the United States and other nations get off of fossil fuels. But solar power generation should take place in the cities and the towns that use the power. Shouldn't be out in the desert. For example, electricity from these sites, including Golden Currant, will go to Las Vegas and Los Angeles. Huge space is available in those cities for solar panels, parking lots, factory roofs, the roofs of large organizations and stores like Home Depot and so forth. 25% of the power will be lost in the transmission from Pahrump Valley to those areas. Secondly, utilities and solar farm developers are marketing this Pahrump Valley solar as, quote, green power to community choice aggregations or CCAs in California. This is a deception. The impacts on the desert environment are ignored in such a claim, and several of the people who have spoken have described in great detail what the impacts would be to desert tortoises, to certain plant species, and other things. So it shouldn't be marketed as, quote, green energy. That's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon Salter. Shannon, I see your hand raised. You can unmute and go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Let's see.
Yes.
Hi, yep. Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Shannon Salter. I am with an organization called Mojave Green. We have a website, mojavegreen.org. I have been camping about 20 feet outside the proposed Golden Currant Solar site since October, and I've been observing the destruction at the Yellow Pine Solar site. You can see a lot of photos on my website at mojavegreen.org, and we've also had reporters from the Las Vegas Sun documenting the destruction as well as some of the flora on the Golden Currant site. I have to tell you, I've hiked extensively now on the proposed Golden Currant site. There are some of the largest Mojave Yucca I've ever seen, 15 feet tall and even higher than that. The site is not flat by any means. I've hiked the length of it with great difficulty. It's full of box canyons and washes that are very high. It would take an extensive amount of land moving and leveling. I'm also extremely concerned about the mesquite woodland around Cathedral Canyon Road and Cathedral Canyon itself. Cathedral Canyon itself is a historical treasure and a cultural resource. Every time I visit Cathedral Canyon, I see people from Pahrump there using their ATVs. So it's a popular area for ATVs and off-roading vehicles from Pahrump to use those trails. It's also a popular camping site, and the area around is a popular camping site and a popular hiking site. So we're looking at extensive recreation loss there. But we're not going to sit by and let this happen. This is an extremely misguided and sickening use of public land. I've watched the dust hazard explode at the Yellow Pine Solar site. They bulldoze everything, and we will not sit passively by and watch this. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Sorrells. Okay, we do not see her on the attendance, so we'll go ahead. Go ahead and stop that, and we will go to the next page. There are some additional people that did register. Heather Gang. Okay, I do see that your hand is raised. Do you want to go ahead? Heather, can you go ahead? Heather, I do see that your mic is unmuted, so just testing to see if you can. I do see your mic unmuted, and oh wait, you did just take your hand down. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on, but if you do want to come back, just let us know. Okay, the next person is Eric Venn. Okay, Eric, if you want to go ahead, you should be able to unmute.
Yes, good evening to everyone. I had great anticipation for this event, but really, I'm sorry, but there's no better word. The non-answers that we have received were very disappointing and disillusioning. We got a reading from the procedural information that we can find online, and really the facts that many people in the question and answers section were asking for were just completely avoided. Also hearing that BLM doesn't know when the botanical survey would be completed, but already know that one decision, I don't remember exactly which phase, would be made on August 5th, which is only 2 weeks from now. And the final evaluation will be done by this fall, 2022. So all these things just telling me that, as Ms. Sharon Minch, an earlier commenter, said, this decision had already been made by the BLM. And I'm just baffled why. Several people mentioned that, including me, that we thought that BLM was supposed to be a good steward of these lands. And they have exact data now and input from the people who live in this area about yellow pine and the immense devastation that they are doing there. It's a catastrophe. So my feeling based on all that is that this procedure has been minimized into some kind of charade because it's required some kind of law or decision. I personally don't feel that BLM is actually listening, but I'm glad that I could put this opinion on record. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the people that pre-registered and identified that they would like to speak. So what we're going to do is we would like to offer public comment to those people that have not spoken yet. So we will go in the order that we see them. I see first, Heather Gang, that you are raising your hand and you were on pre-registration to speak. Would you like to go ahead?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you. I'm concerned about the destruction of the soils in the Golden Currant site. The desert pavement in the northern part of the site would be irreparably destroyed. And then where the pavement is less well developed, the soils tend to be stabilized by biotic crusts that are also very delicate and take a very long time to form. In the southern part of the site, the soils are fine-grained Pleistocene spring deposits, and they could potentially contain vertebrate fossils. Fossils were documented by Spalding and Quaid near Stump Spring. We have seen from the yellow pine destruction that desert pavements and crusts do not survive the solar panel installation, even when the so-called mowing technique is used. Abundant silt will create an unmitigatable dust hazard, and the carbon sequestered in the soil biota will be released. Just over the state line, similar land is designated as wilderness. In 2012, Bright Source Energy proposed to build the Hidden Hills Solar Electric Project in Charleston View. This application was withdrawn in 2015 due to concerns over the effects on wildlife, groundwater, cultural, and historical resources in the area. That's from Wikipedia. Why are we going through this again? But the greatest tragedy is the loss of our wild places. It's a beautiful place. People do recreate there. There are religious installations nearby, Cathedral Canyon and the St. Therese Mission, that exemplify the reverence that these lands inspire. Wild spaces, vast open landscapes are the greatest features of Nevada. I'm in Ohio right now. 98% of the land is modified by man. What you may think there's a lot of wild space left, but in the context of the entire nation, wild spaces are rare and becoming even rarer. There's no need to destroy these remaining wild spaces. There's plenty of space for solar power on rooftops and parking lots. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, as I mentioned, we will now go to those people that have not spoken yet, and we'll start with the first person that I see that has not spoken is Deborah Savitt. Deborah, I see your hand raised. Do you want to unmute? And you
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I'm Deborah Savitt. I live in Yucca Valley, where we have a lot of gesture trees, and we're trying to protect them the best we can. So what I want to say to all of you, we're here in support of you, all of you that want to protect your beautiful nature there. What upsets me is that big solar just tears everything down. It's in conflict with what it's trying to do. It's trying to go green, which is a good idea. But the problem is when you tear down all the plants and the trees and the ecosystems, it's throwing the planet off balance. So it's in conflict, kind of like a conundrum of what it's supposed to be doing. Some of the research that I've done has shown that big solar, if they can be a little more creative, can put panels over gardens, in shade crops, where it would, work in conjunction with maybe farming. I've seen them used as vertical walls. They're trying to use them in other countries, like on lakes and oceans. Also land that's not being used, or is not disturbing an ecosystem. So I'm trying to figure out why this is happening. It seems like big business is interfering. And what really disturbs me is what we see in the state of California as well, is how some of the scientists that work for, say, the BLM or for the CFW, California Fish and Wildlife and Game, seem to be bought out to big money. And this is going to devastate us and our planet. We as humans need nature in order to survive. And so to me, it's a craziness. We need to really think a lot more about where we're putting big solar. Yes, we need to go solar, maybe more rooftop or more creative ways of using big solar. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we have another person that has not spoken. Laura Cunningham. If you want to go ahead.
Hello. I tried to ask a Q&A several times. I had technical problems as Kevin Emmerich, but I tried to ask a question, but I'll make it now a comment. I have hiked in this project area extensively, and the half of the proposed project area is deep incised badlands and deep washes. And hiking in this extensively rugged badland terrain, I cannot fathom how the solar company thinks it can build a solar project on half of this proposed site. The badlands are very deep, they're rugged, they're beautiful. I mean, this area could be a wilderness area. It's got full of tortoises, honey mesquite. So I wanted to ask a question, but you skipped over me as Kevin Emmerich. How does the project proponent propose to build a solar photovoltaic project on such an extensively like topographically challenging area that is not flat and is extremely just full of beautiful deep washes and badlands. Anyway, I just wanted to make that comment that like a good 40 to 50% of this area is actually not a flat desert. It is a very interesting badland desert full of topography. And I don't even think that a lot of this area qualifies as a solar project. Somebody was sitting at their table looking at a map and drew a line, and very few people have actually gone out there to look. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I do want to give the opportunity for people that may not have spoken yet to raise their hand and make a comment. I'll remind everyone that this is all part of the public record and goes into the public, into the process. Okay, I'm going to give it one more minute, and then I see that there's somebody that has spoken that has their hand raised. So let's give it 1 minute to see if there's anyone else. Just 1 minute. Okay, let's go. I do see someone, Donna Neitz, if you want to go ahead. Donna, you should be able to unmute your mic. There you go.
Yes, I'd just like to say I am a resident of Pahrump, and I'd like to know why these people want to destroy our town. We all know, if we've lived out here at all, about the dust problems that we have. We all know that there are going to be water problems. They want to run these solar panels right up to residential areas and to schools. There's no way that they're ever going to get the land to not blow around. The whole Pahrump Valley is going to be one cesspool of dirt. And I just don't understand, like a lot of people have said, let the people put them on their roofs, let them put them on over parking lots to give shade. You're going to destroy this whole area and the whole town. And it's about 40,000 people, or maybe a little more. And I don't think that's quite fair, especially since all of this solar energy is going to create electrical for Clark County and California. We ourselves are going to be destroyed because of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm looking, it does look like, let's see, the group that's coming up, I think, let's see, I go Kevin. We'll go ahead and go in the order that I've seen them. Okay, we'll go Michael Fender. I see your hand raised. Michael Fender, do you want to unmute? You can go ahead.
Anyway, thanks for letting me talk again. I would just like to add that this program that went into coming up with these solar projects started way before 2008. And it was called the PEIS, the Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement, which was first put together in 2008. And it covered the deserts in the southwest of California, Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. With this information, it was finalized, believe it or not, the last draft in 2012. They have broken down these states into different zones and areas. They have surveyed them. They know what the country looks like. So if you want to get a bit of good reading to become on top of where this information came from and why they selected this valley in itself, it's a lot of reading because the report is over 2,500 pages. So if you're really interested, here it's called the PEIS, the Programmatic Environmental Impact Statement. And the last draft was available in 2012. Anyway, that will give you an insight. This didn't happen overnight. This was planned many years ago. And finally now they're decided to run this operation and just bury us in these 5 states with the responsibility of providing our land and destroying the country that we live in for the others that aren't doing much of anything. Now, there are some out there in other states in the East Coast and the Midwest. Yeah, they have solar farms, but nothing like they have planned for here. Anyway, thanks again. And that's just some information I thought I want people to know. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, we'll continue with people, giving everyone another chance. Christian Gerlich, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you kindly. And again, Christian Gerlach, like Gerlach, Nevada.
I apologize.
All good, Miss Polio. Hope I said your name all right. So again, executive order by President Bill Clinton, Executive Order 12898, signed on February 11th, 1994, requires all federal agencies to identify and address disproportionately high and adverse human health or environmental effects of their actions on minority and low-income populations to the greatest extent possible by public law. This includes the low-income community members of the Pahrump Valley, the Las Vegas Valley, who will suffer from greater increase of particulate matter and dust as a result of the clearing of our desert public lands that take thousands of years to get to the point that they're in currently prior to any sort of destruction or devastation. We are already seeing literal brownouts along the US 95 southbound as a result of many of the solar fields that have been installed headed southbound on the US 95. When the wind blows, the US 95 is literally impassable, and oftentimes they have to close down the US 95 southbound and northbound between Boulder City and Searchlight as a result of the brownouts from all the dust that blows that from the lands that have been disturbed for these solar renewable energy projects. Again, this doesn't even touch the urban heat island effect that results from the dark solar panels absorbing more light, heat from the sun, and later radiating it into the surrounding habitat and area. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the Bureau of Land Management. They are a multi-use agency. You've got to balance a lot of things, but this will impact human health negatively and goes against that executive order aforementioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Christina Sanchez, I see your hand raised. Do you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I was muted. Okay. Thank you once again for calling on me. The mitigation efforts was mentioned earlier of relocating these yucca species like the Joshua tree and the Mojave yucca. And I just wanted to make a comment that the survival rate of relocating these plant species is low. I have been to sites to record where Joshua trees and Mojave yuccas had been relocated from other project sites, and they do not survive. Survival rate is very low. Mitigation can, also dictate that there has to be some type of monitoring where the species have to be watered and maintained. But the survival rate's low, and if the species are there, I said earlier about the release of carbon back into the atmosphere. Other folks have discussed about the cryptobiotic crust, how it's going to be releasing the atmospheric carbon once again. This is just a really disheartening project because it's not greening the earth, we're browning the environment. And we are already seeing how climate change is impacting like the desert tortoise. Also, survival rate of relocating desert tortoises is low, very low to like nil. So if your goal is to protect these species, and also rare plants, I would love to see, and I would like to know when, I know you can't answer my question, but when will there be a botanical survey and the environmental surveys made public? Because I would like to go over that. But if the goal is to protect the environment, you're not doing the job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a couple more people with their hand raised. Let's go to Kevin Emmerich. Kevin, go ahead.
Hi, hello, thank you again, Kevin Emmerich, Basin and Range Watch. People are asking why here, and that's because you built the big substation and approved that at Trout Canyon. It can accommodate a lot more projects. It should be noted that there need to be upgrades to the transmission system going into that line, so you can all get involved in that when it happens, so stay tuned. One of the sad things about Golden Currant, it's being built, or proposed to be built by Primergy, who's building Gemini Solar right now. Primergy seems to be really friendly with the Nevada legislature and other politicians, and got away with getting that approved on 11 square miles of pretty high conflict areas. Even with good mitigation, they had to move about 180 desert tortoises, some of which are being held in a facility so drought doesn't kill them. They're developing 600 to 700 acres of habitat for one of Nevada's rarest plants called the three-corner milk vetch, and finally impacting about 2 to 3 miles of the old Spanish National Historical Trail. I see that as a very similar project area and project site to the Golden Currant site. And I was going to echo every comment that we're hearing on this forum. Just do not approve this. Do not have a repeat of the disaster of Gemini Solar that's being built by the Valley of Fire State Park, another very valuable piece of public land that seems to have been sacrificed for unnecessary solar projects, and we're just not utilizing our built environment enough. And we need to look at those alternatives and the need for these projects before we destroy more public lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Shannon Salter. Do you want to go ahead and go?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. I just wanted to add that at my camp across from the Golden Currant site, I saw and am seeing kit foxes every single night. And interestingly enough, when I asked a biologist working at the Yellow Pine Solar site, what they were doing to mitigate the kit fox on the site, she said that they hadn't found any, and they didn't have any record of kit foxes on the Yellow Pine site, which I know was an outright lie. Another thing I wanted to add about air quality, there's some air quality measures that they just won't be able to mitigate. Of course, as they're bulldozing and scraping and grading the soil, that is, going everywhere. And of course, they're spraying 350,000 gallons a day, as Chris, the manager at the Kiewit manager at the construction site at Yellow Pine told me. They're spraying 350,000 gallons of water per day that they bought legally from the Pahrump Valley. So I would presume that Noble Solar would try to do the same thing, buy water rights from the Pahrump Valley, the aquifer of which has already been over allocated badly and in fact is being depleted. But in addition to scraping the soil, after the soil is scraped away, then we have that poof dirt, of course, which they really can't spray enough water on to keep down. But another thing is that for every solar panel, they have to drill, they use this huge equipment to drill these massive holes into the earth. And when they do that, it's an explosion of soil that I also have photos of on mojavegreen.org. And they don't even try to mitigate it. They don't try to spray it down because it would be an absurd thing to do. So yeah, the air quality thing is a really big issue that I think we need to focus on and target here. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like we have time for maybe two more. I don't see anyone's hand raised right now, but if you do want to make a public comment, you can raise your hand. Okay, we'll pause here. I'll be watching. And again, we'll close out in about 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, I do see Shannon Salter. It looks like you have one more comment. If you would like to go ahead and unmute and go ahead.
Yeah, just one more quick thing. I just wanted to add that at Cathedral Canyon, we have the grave of Kehoe, which he was a famous Native American in the early 1900s. And he was a person that survived alone. And he really took it upon himself to fight against the white settlers that had ruined his valley. And his remains were brought there by Roland Wiley, who is the eccentric and wealthy, actually the first district attorney in Las Vegas, that owned the Cathedral Canyon property. And the Cathedral Canyon property is still owned by the Wiley estate. But he built Cathedral Canyon. You can see pictures of what it once looked like. An incredibly sacred site where thousands of people came every year. A spiritual place, a place to think. So he also had the grave of Kehoe is still there. And I think we would be moving in the wrong direction to encroach upon Kehoe's grave and denigrate that landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and close out. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Okay, wait, I do see one more person. So this will be it. Let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll immediately close thereafter. We are trying to get to everyone. Again, appreciate everyone staying with us and all of the public input we've received. So let's go ahead. Eric, you will be the last one if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Just a very quick note to what Shannon said earlier, that the dust mitigation, Clark County does a really good job with the regulation, how to mitigate dust during the construction. But of course, those things were designed for the city when things are being built in the city, and the desert is very different. But the main issue is that dust mitigation is mandatory during the construction. But once the construction is over, they don't apply. We still be living here at that time. And even though Clark County has those regulations, Pahrump is in Nye County. And once again, the construction is over and the vegetation is destroyed, the dust is not going to just sit quietly there because the construction is over and the regulations don't apply anymore. So we're just going to eat dust for the following decades. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move to the next slide and go ahead and do a closeout.
Hi, everyone. Shauna Duman again, Field Manager for the Las Vegas Field Office. And I wanted to thank everyone for spending your time with us this evening. Heard a lot of great comments tonight. And we will be taking additional comments through August 5th. We do have another meeting tomorrow night if you'd like to join us again. But we do have ability through an email and mail if you want to submit further comments. All of your comments have been recorded and they will be part of the record. And just again, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being here and providing input on this project. So Kenda, I'm going to pass it back to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We'll go ahead and leave up this last slide. So people that have not been able to note the email address or the mailing address have the time to do that now. Again, you can also use the chat feature. There are a number of links that were put in the chat feature for you to obtain additional information, email addresses, and websites. Again, we are getting close to the top of the hour, so we will be closing down in a couple minutes. But again, we'll stay here and make sure that everyone is able to get this information down. Very much appreciate all of the participation this evening. We know your time is very valuable, especially to come and provide comment in the evening hours. So again, thank you very much.